Very good afternoon to you and welcome to BBC News. The stepbrother of the schoolgirl Becky Watts has been found guilty of her murder. 28-year-old Nathan Matthews suffocated 16-year-old Becky while trying to kidnap her from her home in Bristol in February. Her dismembered body was found in a garden shed. His girlfriend, Shauna Hoare, was acquitted of murder today, but found guilty of manslaughter. Well, our correspondent Andrew Plant is at Bristol Crown Court. And Andrew, a harrowing trial with some very gruesome evidence, but in the end, the verdicts were returned relatively quickly, weren't they?
Yeah, they really were, Ben. It's been 9 months now since Becky was first reported missing by her family here in Bristol. And we saw searches going on all across this city, from forests to lakes. We saw members of her community, her friends and family, turning out in the cold and the dark, trying to help find her. But they were hoping in vain, really. 10 days later, police here announced that the search for Becky had become a murder investigation, and very, very quickly they made some arrests. Two of those arrests were Becky's 28-year-old stepbrother, Nathan Matthews, and his 21-year-old girlfriend, Shauna Hoare. They came to trial here more than 3 weeks ago, and we've heard, as you said, some pretty harrowing evidence over 21 days here at Bristol Crown Court. And I think everybody expected that it would take several days for these verdicts to come back. But in fact, it took just a few minutes more than 3 hours for the jury to come back with their decision. And they decided that Nathan Matthews was guilty both of Becky's kidnap and her murder, and that Shauna Hoare was guilty of her kidnap and her manslaughter. With the background to this case, here's John Kay.
Together, Shauna Hoare and Nathan Matthews. The prosecution claimed they were motivated by jealousy and by a sexual interest in teenage girls, which led to them killing Becky Watts. Nathan Matthews told police he was a Neanderthal and psychologically disturbed. He confessed to killing his stepsister, but said he'd done it by accident. He claimed he'd only been trying to scare her. Shauna Hoare, who was pregnant at the time, claimed she knew nothing about the schoolgirl's death. But the prosecution said they were in it together, that this was an attack on a shy 16-year-old who'd recently been treated for anorexia.
Bex, if you can see this, get in contact.
When Becky disappeared, her father and stepmum told me they thought she'd been kidnapped. They had no idea that his daughter had been killed by her son.
If you've got her, then put her somewhere we can find her. We want her home, please.
They now know that less than 2 years after they posed for wedding pictures as a new family, Becky, their bridesmaid, was killed by her stepbrother. Nathan Matthews was the best man that day, and the other bridesmaid was his girlfriend, Shauna Hoare.
I was just devastated.
In a new interview with BBC News, Angie and Darren Galsworthy describe their pain.
I just couldn't accept it. He seemed fine. He loving.
Yeah, well, your son, my daughter, wasn't it? Nathan was so arrogant, he thought he could get away with it. Which is probably why he chops her into small pieces and distributes her body parts all over the place, wasn't it?
It was the 19th of February when Matthews and Hoare drove to Becky's house. The teenager was alone in her bedroom. A pathologist said she was suffocated after fighting for her life in a violent struggle. The trial heard that Nathan Matthews took a kidnapping kit with him, including a stun gun. Inside, forensic officers found his fingerprints in traces of Becky's blood. The former Territorial Army soldier told police that he put his stepsister's body in a suitcase, and the couple then drove back to their own house a couple of miles away in central Bristol. When they got here, Nathan Matthews and Shauna Hoare ordered a takeaway and watched a comedy video on YouTube entitled "Do You Want to Hide a Body?" They then began the process of hiding Becky's remains. The next morning, the 28-year-old went to a DIY store and bought a circular saw. Then, with Hoare, he bought tape, rubble sacks and a large number of cleaning products. When police searched the couple's home, they found every room filled with junk and mess apart from the bathroom, which was spotlessly clean. This is where Becky's body had been dismembered. Her remains were then packaged into bags and cases and hidden in a neighbour's shed 80 yards away.
The circumstances of this case are truly horrific. They're gruesome and they are grotesque. To dismember a human body is a very, very unusual occurrence, and for it to happen in these circumstances after a stepbrother kills his stepsister is just despicable and brutal.
Shauna Hoare told the trial she was entirely innocent and was terrified of Matthews herself. But the prosecution likened her to Lady Macbeth, saying they acted as a team.
There's only one way of paying for the sort of crime they've done, and that's by losing their own life. This is Becky's room.
Becky Watts would have been 17 now. Her family say after losing her and knowing how she was killed here, their lives can never be the same again. John Kay, BBC News.
So we now know for sure that day back in February, Nathan Matthews intended to go into Becky's bedroom, his 16-year-old stepsister's bedroom. He intended to kill her, and he was also trying to evade capture by the police by dismembering her body, putting it in bags and then storing it in a friend's shed a couple of miles across town. We're told just in the last few minutes that he, alongside his girlfriend Shauna Hoare, will be sentenced here on Friday morning. But before then, as you can see, there is a lot of media gathering here at Bristol Crown Court because we are expecting some statements here in the next 10 minutes or so. We'll hear from the police, from a family liaison officer, but also from Becky's grandfather here too.
Andrew, thank you very much indeed. Andrew Plant reporting for us there from Bristol Crown Court.